Welcome to the deep dive. We're so glad you could join us today. And a really warm welcome to everyone listening from Morozova School. This deep dive is especially for you. Our goal today is pretty straightforward. We know you're busy and you want to master English efficiently, as fast as possible, really. So we've looked into the research, the science behind learning, and some of the most successful techniques out there. We want to give you the clearest possible path to fluency, basically taking the guesswork out of how to learn English effectively.
That's exactly right. We've analyzed studies on how adults actually learn languages, which is, different from kids. We've looked at what methods genuinely work, and importantly, the small things you can start doing today. We're going to focus a lot on a key insight, active practice. That's really crucial.
Okay, interesting. Let's unpack this then. Before we jump into the daily tips, maybe we should understand a bit of the science. Why does some practice work better?
Well, yes. A lot of adults feel a bit discouraged. They think, oh, it's too hard to learn a language now I'm older. Ooh, and it's true. Children's brains are different. They have more plasticity. They seem to just absorb sounds and grammar very naturally.
But adults have their own strengths. We're usually quite good at spotting patterns, right? And we can use all the knowledge we already have about the world, plus our social skills, to help us learn.
Exactly. The process is just different. It's certainly not impossible. And what's really fascinating is this difference between two types of learning practice. There was a well-known study using a made-up language. They called it alienese. They looked at language comprehension versus language production.
Okay, so comprehension, that's like listening to us now or reading a book.
Precisely. And production is when you create the language, so speaking or writing something down. And the study found that the group who had to practice production, the ones who had to try and speak alienese, even when it was difficult for them, they actually scored much higher on the grammar tests later on. They were also faster to answer the questions.
Ugh. So here's where it gets really interesting. It means that the hard part, the bit where you're maybe struggling to find the right word or get the sentence structure right, that's actually the most valuable bit.
Exactly that. When your brain has to really work to retrieve that word or build that sentence, some call it linguistic struggle, that effort makes the memory for the language much stronger than just, say, passively listening. It helps the information stick.
I kind of think of it like learning to ride a bike. You can read the manual, understand the theory, that's comprehension, but you won't actually learn until you get on the bike and try to do it. That's the production part. You probably need to wobble and maybe fall a bit to figure out the balance. Okay, so we get the science. Active practice, maybe a little struggle, is really important. But what about for most learners, people with busy lives, maybe only 15 minutes before work? How do we translate that science into something practical, something you can do at home?
Right. That brings us nicely to our first big practical tip, consistency and routine. This sounds simple, but it's backed up by a lot of advice. Studying for, say, 15 minutes every single day is much, much more effective than trying to cram for 2 hours just once a week. Your brain really benefits from that regular, even if small, contact.
We sometimes call these micro habits, don't we? Little things you can build in, like maybe putting Post-it notes with new words around your kitchen.
Yes, that's a good example. But let's connect it back to the science. If you only have 15 minutes, how do you make sure it's active production, not just passive looking? Good point. So with the Post-it note idea, don't just glance at it. Take the word, let's say it's essential. Try to write one quick sentence using essential in a notebook. Just one. That's forcing production, maybe takes a minute. Or if you use a vocabulary app on your commute, make sure you use the speaking practice feature if it has one. Don't just flip through the cards.
Got it. Active effort, even in small bursts. Okay, tip number 2.
Tip 2. Engage with media strategically. Everyone says watch movies in English, but it's often how you watch that counts.
Right, so maybe start by watching a show you like, perhaps first in your own language, but then watch it again with English subtitles.
Exactly. Because using English subtitles helps you connect the sounds you're hearing with the words you're seeing. It practices listening and reading together. And music. Music is great. Make an English playlist, try singing along, don't worry about sounding perfect, and maybe look up the lyrics and translate them. You learn loads of natural expressions that way.
Nice. Okay, tip 3 is about maximizing vocabulary, I believe.
Yes, absolutely key. Vocabulary gives you the building blocks. Grammar is like the cement that holds them together, but you need the blocks first. If you're reading something and you don't know, say, 90% of the words, even perfect grammar knowledge won't help you understand the meaning.
So what's the best way to actively build vocabulary? A notebook.
A vocabulary notebook is a classic for a reason. But again, think active practice. Don't just write the word and the translation. If you can, try to find the definition in English. Note down how it's spelled, maybe different forms. And then this is the crucial active step. Try to write 2 or 3 of your own sentences using that word. Maybe aim for, say, 10 new words a day. Make them active.
10 a day sounds manageable if you focus. Okay, tip 4 moves towards interaction, right? Practice production and interaction.
Yes. If speaking is one of the most effective ways to learn, well, you need to actually speak. You need to find opportunities to talk.
Even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Absolutely. There are great platforms now, apps like Tandem or HelloTalk. They connect you with native speakers who want to learn your language or just other learners. Having these informal conversations is so important. It helps you get used to casual speech, idioms, the way people really talk.
I know a lot of learners feel nervous about that, though. Worried about making mistakes in front of someone.
And that brings us perfectly to our 5th tip, which is maybe more of a mindset thing, but it's essential. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Seriously, mistakes aren't failures. Think of them as data points. They show your brain is trying things out, testing the rules. Every mistake helps you learn what doesn't work, which is the necessary step towards figuring out what does work. They're a part of the process.
That's a really important perspective shift. Okay, so let's say someone's doing these things, are consistent, using media actively, building vocabulary, trying to speak, and they're okay with making mistakes. What's the next level? For learners who are maybe intermediate or advanced and want to be super efficient, are there expert techniques?
Yes, definitely. For those wanting to really optimize, we can look at techniques from language teaching research. The first one is called spaced retrieval practice.
Space retrieval. Sounds a bit technical.
It does, but the idea is simple. It's basically about practicing smart forgetting.
Smart forgetting. How does that work?
Instead of cramming reviewing something over and over again, immediately you deliberately recall information, like a new word or a grammar rule, at intervals that get longer over time. You wait until you've almost forgotten it, and then you test yourself. That moment of difficult recall is incredibly powerful for building long-term memory.
Ah, okay. So instead of reviewing today's new words tonight, maybe review them in 2 days, and then again maybe next week. That kind of planned spacing.
Exactly that. That systematic spacing makes retention much, much stronger than massed practice, like cramming.
Interesting. What else?
Next up, learning lexical chunks and formulaic sequences. This is about making your speech sound smoother and more natural, faster.
Lexical chunks. What exactly is a chunk?
Well, think about building with Lego. You could try to assemble every single tiny piece individually, or you could use bigger pre-assembled blocks. Lexical chunks are like those pre-assembled blocks of language. They're groups of words that native speakers often use together automatically, almost like one unit.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Phrases like, on the other hand, or as far as I know, or make a decision, or even simple things like, have a look. We don't usually build those word by word each time. We retrieve the whole chunk. Learning these chunks reduces the mental effort when you speak. You don't have to focus so much on getting the grammar perfect for that phrase. You just use the chunk. It frees up your brain to focus on the overall meaning.
That makes sense. It helps with fluency. And the last expert technique.
The last one is pushed output tasks. And this links right back to that science we talked about, the importance of productive struggle.
Pushed output, meaning tasks that push you.
Exactly. Tasks that force you to use language that's a little bit more complex or precise than you might normally use comfortably. So, for example, instead of just asking, how was your weekend? A teacher might say, tell me about your weekend, but you must include 3 sentences using the past perfect tense.
Ah, okay, so it sets a specific linguistic challenge.
Yes. That challenge, that linguistic struggle to meet the requirement, forces your brain to access and use those more complex structures or more specific vocabulary. That's where really deep learning can happen.
These are great advanced strategies. Now, before we finish, we wanted to share a few useful English phrases. These are phrases you might hear or use in a learning context for reflecting or discussing things.
Yes, tools for talking about learning itself. The first one is, let's unpack this.
Right. We used this earlier. You use it when you want to start looking at an idea or a topic in more detail. It basically means, let's examine this carefully together.
A very useful one. Second phrase, great for reflection or group work. What stands out to you?
This is a nice open question. It just means what seems most important or noticeable to you in this text or this discussion helps to focus attention.
The third one is handy for giving feedback, maybe on writing. I suggest changing.
Yeah, it's a polite and constructive way to offer an alternative. I recommend saying this differently. Much better than just saying this is wrong.
Definitely. And the last one, often used to move to a bigger point. This raises an important question.
You'd use this when something you've just discussed makes you think about a deeper issue or a related problem. It signals a shift to critical thinking. This makes us consider something significant.
So 4 useful phrases to add to your toolkit. We've covered quite a bit today, from the brain science to daily habits to advanced techniques. And remember, learning English isn't just about practical things like travel or jobs, although those are great. Research consistently shows that being bilingual actually benefits your brain. It can make you better at switching between tasks, for example. It's like exercise for your mental flexibility.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, our listeners, especially from Morzova School? The challenge of learning English is real, we know that. But the science and practical experience show a clear path. If you practice actively, really focus on speaking and writing, build those small, consistent daily habits, and crucially, if you're not afraid to make mistakes, you will improve. You will see results. And here's a final thought to mull over. We often hear that languages like Spanish or French or Norwegian are easier for English speakers because they share roots, vocabulary, maybe similar grammar points.
But think about it from the other direction. Many studies show that strong literacy skills in your first language can really help when learning English. Your understanding of how language works transfers. So what if you paid closer attention to the structure, the grammar, even the style of your own native language? How might deepening that understanding actually give you insights into the structure of English too?
That's definitely something interesting to consider on your language learning journey. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. Our best advice now: pick just one thing we talked about, maybe that 15-minute daily habit or trying one pushed output task, and apply it today. Start now.
Goodbye for now, and happy learning.